For a few moments after that, Renee's dad looked like he was going to lose it. I could hear his fingers cracking as he flexed them, his nails ever so slightly extending outward. Hear the grinding of his teeth. He was absolutely furious, and it was not looking good for me, because it looked like he was about to blow a serious gasket. And then something unexpected happened. A chuckle. At first just one, a little one, let out through the gritting of his teeth, and then another and another on top of that. Soon he was laughing like a madman. Finally, his nails began to retract, his teeth shrinking back down to normal. I would say his eyes returned to normal as well, but he was laughing so hard his eyes weren't open. He gripped his abdomen, one hand on his face as he tried to contain himself. "Ah," he finally said after the laughter began to subside. "You know, sometimes you have to be careful what you ask the universe for. You know, it's ridiculous. It really is. Here I was, so furious that Renee would disobey my orders and do something so foolish. And yet, in those actions, Renee ensnared an amount of power that is absolutely absurd. Actions taken completely on foolish emotion and whim, and yet, if viewed by anyone else in the wolf community, as they tell the story, they will no doubt speak of Renee's strategic brilliance, ensnaring the only descendant of the lost bloodline for her own, when in actuality she had no idea. She committed an utterly foolish action, and despite all common sense or reason, was rewarded for it. And here I was with all of my ideas, my desires for what I wanted for Renee's future. And she sought to cast them all to the side, to do only what she wished, regardless of what I wanted, to ignore my desires altogether. And in the end, she gave me all of them. I wanted her to be with a high-tier werewolf, and she is with one. I wanted him to be of a respectable bloodline, and he's of a legendary one. I wanted a man who was strong and capable, one more like myself, perhaps someone who trained in the martial arts. And she chose one, all of her own accord, by her own will, and completely in defiance of me. She gave both herself and me everything she wanted, everything I wanted. If this was a card game, Renee just got a royal straight flush, the strongest hand possible. And just like a card game, it was sheer luck. Or who knows, maybe it was fate. But regardless of which, Renee just made a fool out of everyone, me included. "Very well, Renee. You win," her father said, smiling to her as he finally began to loosen up, releasing his hold on his midsection, and smiling almost sinisterly. "Well played, my daughter. Now I can't even kill him. His bloodline is too important, and the only other possible option, well, let's just say there are many obstacles, including the fact that his age is far too great to be deciding to try to change him into a werewolf, and definitely not to ask him to be with my daughter, and especially not after killing his son. So, it's not an option, even if he is the egg. So there are no moves left. Whether I would have approved of it or not, Victor is now your husband. If I want to maintain his bloodline and ensure that it is carried on through my own, then Victor must live, no matter the cost. It has been a very long time since I have been so thoroughly beaten. I'm in fact having trouble remembering the last time it was. Nearly 300 years ago, which was not a confrontation that I enjoyed. But I must say, I'm beginning to find this defeat somewhat satisfying. Regardless, we might as well move on. What has been done cannot be undone. And to be honest, I don't think I want to undo it. Foolish mistake or not, it's a great boon to our pack, and especially our family. Welcome, Victor. Soon enough, we'll have to arrange some sort of event in which you and Renee can be officially married in the human society. Most likely some sort of elope. Tell people that you ran away and got married together. Make it official in the human world so you and Renee can be together without conflict. It should be easy enough to do. In the meantime, I should probably get the news out. I think that's enough for our visit with the Inquisitors. They no doubt have all the information that they need in order to proceed, do you not? Yes, the man in the white suit replied. What we've got is more than enough for us to proceed with our investigation. We can now, of course, completely ignore any suspicions of devious intent and focus entirely on tracking his bloodline back to attempt to find Salvera Reaper, which I'm sure the Council will put a great deal of effort into, and they will most likely be working me down to the bone. I see a lot of long nights coming ahead, he said, taking a sigh, and I was already so overworked. They really need to hire more people for this. Maybe this is the inspiration they'll need. Perhaps this could be beneficial to me as well, he said, as he gently rubbed at his chin, thinking about it, and how to turn this to his advantage. Man, was everybody in the werewolf world like this? Just playing some endless game of checkers with each other? One power move after the next? Is that really how they live? They act like it's normal. Like that's just the normal state of mind for people, I thought to myself, completely dumbfounded by all of it, and finally starting to calm down as Renee's father no longer looked like he wanted to kill me. It was at that point that the official Inquisitors packed up their briefcases and began to make their way out, shaking hands with Mr. Hollowfield and myself, and even Renee as they exited, leaving me and Renee's family alone. Well, honey, it seems that things have gone, well, unexpectedly. I assume that you'll be gathering the pack in order to greet our new member and future successor, Renee's mother said as she took a seat on top of one of the desks that lined the exterior of the room, crossing one leg over the other and making herself comfortable. Yes, I'll be getting right on that. The pack is going to want to know about this, and it's important that we put them on task. We need to make sure that no one gets to Victor. Victor, you're going to be getting followed for a while. Your senses might be able to pick it up, but try to ignore it. What? What do you mean getting followed? I replied, a sort of shocked look on my face. I mean just that, Victor. You're an important new member. There are countless wolves out there who might have devious plans for you, and even capturing you might be within their interests. Not all werewolves abide by the laws, so it's important until you get done with your training, learn how to master your abilities, that you be protected. So, tonight, I'm calling a pack meeting, in which I will introduce you to the rest of the pack, including the official generals. Official generals? Who are they? Every pack has standings, rankings that people fall within. In our pack, everyone has a military rank. Everyone excluding the head of the pack, that is. Stepping down from the head of the pack, myself. The next in line are known as the generals. They're the 5 official leaders of the different segments and territories within my territory. They govern smaller instances and events, so that I don't have to worry about every little thing. I give orders to them, they give orders to the rest of the pack. Each of the 5 generals has under their command 2 captains, and each captain can have anywhere between 5 and 10 soldiers. Of course, know that military ranking is simply the means by which we distinguish rank within our pack. Other packs most likely use other means of identification. For example, the pack to the west of here uses the names of nobility as ranking and status from Old England, so people have ranks like the Duke, Lord, and so on and so forth. But the structure is much the same. But it's important that you specifically be recognized by all members of the pack, especially the generals and the captains. I will most likely put my most powerful general in responsibility of you, your protection that is, meaning the general himself. 2 captains and 10 soldiers will all be dedicated to the purpose of keeping an eye on you until further notice. So you will have a great deal of accompaniment wherever you go, until such time I deem you capable of protecting yourself. And believe me, Victor, you may think you're capable right now, but I assure you you're not. You have yet to be able to transform at will. You have no idea how to use your wolven abilities. In fact, you specifically have no idea what your wolven abilities are. It's a disadvantage that most other werewolves will not face. They have others who can teach them how to use their abilities, but yours are singular, and of a bloodline that has disappeared since the very beginning, meaning you will have to suss out your powers for yourself, which could take a great deal more time. In that time, you will need protection to ensure your safety. Wow, that's gonna be creepy, I said, looking down at the floor for a moment. Creepy? Why would it be creepy? Renee's father said, looking at me curiously. It's gonna be creepy to try to have dates with a bunch of guys hanging around. Even if they're in the distance, it's gonna be kinda weird knowing we're being watched. Oh, so you're more put off that someone might see you getting frisky with my daughter. No, that isn't what I said, I replied, both embarrassed and a little bit scared, as he was a little bit right. Well, don't worry about it, he said. The die has already been cast. It's been done. You and my daughter are officially mates. I, even as her father, have absolutely no right to impede you. Do whatever you wish. What? I replied, completely shocked at that point. Exactly what are you telling me? He's telling you he doesn't care if we have sex. We're officially married. It's in the books. He can't stop us. And by the looks of it, he doesn't want to. Remember, your bloodline is important, Victor. It's the lost bloodline. Even if we eventually have kids, which is, of course, the eventuality of having sex, it's only good for us. A continuation of the lost bloodline found only in our bloodline. In fact, as far as he's concerned, the more kids, the better. Right, Dad? That is what you were thinking, Renee said, casting a smile in her father's direction. I did teach you well, didn't I? It appears I'm becoming easy to read. Yes, you two being prosperous as a couple, fruitful as you might call it, will only strengthen our clan. So, I have no more opposition to it. Do as you wish, and have a nice time, he said, as he began to step towards the doorway. The pack will be gathered around 8 for the official meeting, regardless of what you plan to do with the rest of your time. Until then, you must be at the meeting. Come now, dear. Mr. Victor Barron has a great deal of things to learn. Renee, I expect you to continue his instruction. Teach him what he needs to know. I know you two might have some newlywed things to get off your chest, but I expect you to not spend all of your time on it. Try to get some things done, he said, opening the door and walking out, leaving it open, as shortly behind him his wife hopped off of the desk, very gracefully, and strided her way out, beginning to close the door behind her, but allowing her head to peek through as she was about to close it, waving at both of us. "Now you two don't have too much fun," she said, smiling, as her head poked out of the door and she closed it behind her. Okay, that was officially the weirdest thing I have ever experienced. Did your mom and dad just give us the go-ahead? I do not know whether to be happy or completely freaked out by that. "Well, you learn to get used to it," Renee said. "And what was all that stuff about having kids?" "I am totally not ready for kids. That is not something I was planning on anytime soon," I said, looking at Renee in a bit of a panic, hoping that she would agree with me. "Oh, don't worry, Victor. We're not going to be having kids anytime soon. It takes at least 10 years to do that." "What?" I replied. "Renee, that's not how it works," I said, the thoughts going through my head being, has she ever been to anatomy class? I thought she got good grades. How could she not know? Ugh, you're still thinking like a human, Victor. Werewolves don't work the same way. Human beings might be able to get pregnant, just from having sex once, but werewolves don't work that way." "What?" I replied. "And how exactly do werewolves work?" "Well, it's a bit different. You see, us werewolves actually require spiritual energy in order to reproduce. Think of it as a stacking system. Whenever two werewolves who are mated, or not mated for that matter, get together and, you know, do the do, make love, whatever you want to call it, then their souls actually connect. There's a spiritual bond between the two, in which a new form of spiritual energy is created. But the combination causes a loss of energy as the new type of energy is created, so only a small amount is produced. Every time that two wolves make love and produce this small amount of spiritual energy that's different from either of theirs individually, it sort of stacks, building up, gathering. Of course, I am the vessel for that energy, and it will accumulate inside of me, staying nice, safe, and tucked away, inside one specific egg. You do know we have eggs, right, Victor? Yes, Renee, I took anatomy class, and got good grades, as always. Good. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't miss anything. Well, long story short, Victor, once that energy accumulates enough, then we release the egg. And the rest of it is mostly biology rather than spiritual stuff. You know, the sperm, the egg, all that junk. It actually takes about 10 years to fulfill that process. That's why werewolves who are produced through the mating of a human and a werewolf are different and become eggs, because they only got the spiritual jump from one individual, and only a tiny fragment at that. That little spiritual jump is all they have, so they can't really be a werewolf. It just has to build, stacking on top of itself over the generations, until it becomes a full-fledged werewolf. That's why you become eggs. Actually, that does beg the question. Why is it only women that get pregnant from male werewolves that produce eggs? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? When the woman is a werewolf, then she can still stack spiritual energy. The egg still gets to collect energy from her when a human and a werewolf make love and the woman's a werewolf. It just gets a much smaller dose from the father, since he isn't a werewolf like her. What this usually amounts to is when a female werewolf is with a male human, usually it ends up resulting in a drop in tier, For example, if a tier 1 wolf was with a human being and chose them to be their mate, then even if they have children, they would of course be werewolves. Not eggs, like if it were the opposite way around. But they would also drop in tier. A tier 1 wolf might have tier 4 or maybe even a tier 3 child, rather than a tier 5 like themselves. It could even go as low as tier 2. Or, excuse me, tier 4, meaning they'd just be one step above the bottom of the ring. Regardless, long story short, we don't have to worry about kids, Victor. It'll be at least a decade before that can happen. Well, that is, if we are measured. The more often that we, show our love, the faster that happens. 10 years is just for average. If we beef it up, we could do it in 5, Victor, Renee said, smiling and giving me a wink, which did not make me feel comfortable at all.